I cannot believe that the last time I talked to these guys was like months ago. We haven't had them on a show. So it's way past time to have Jason and Jake from Kentucky Sustainable Living on the show. And we're going to talk about anything y'all bring up in the questions. So if you have questions, please put them in all caps so that I can see that you have a question. And we're going to we were already having a really good conversation before we started that I kind of wish we had been recording because I think people would have been interested in that. But we'll see if we get into that. We're going to talk about homesteading, building community. They have a really awesome festival coming called the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival. It's in late October in Kentucky, and it looks like a really fun event. And we're going to talk a little bit about how much work it is to do events probably as we go. But let's step back. Jake, who are you and how did you end up on this live stream for Kentucky Sustainable Living?
Yeah, I'm Jake. I'm with Dog Creek Farm. My farm's in southern Indiana, and we were kind of talking before, we kicked it off, and it's a pretty crazy story, but honestly, Jason was on a interview with Tag from Life Done Free. Jason's like, nobody, you got to be from Kentucky to be in this group, this and that. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm 2 hours from Jason. So I'm like, I'm going to reach out anyway. And I reached out and he's like, yeah, we're letting some other people in. We kicked it around a little bit. And a couple months later, we talked again. And to me, it just made perfect sense. And I've started an Indiana page. It doesn't have a ton of traction, but honestly, we've been so busy with the Kentucky stuff. It's hard for me. You're talking about time before we started. It's hard to really get anything else going with everything we're doing in Kentucky and then everyday life. But so then I met Jason. Then I took a medical class with Chuck. And then I went down to SRF and met Nicole and just checked out the event. And it's just a really unique thing. And I mean, if there's anything going on in your area, wherever you're at, get out there and do it. Meeting people, it's just amazing the people you get to meet. And I think it's a really unique thing. It's not something I would get out and talk about, in the past. But after going to these events and the people I've got to meet, I mean, you just build great friendships. So that's kind of in a nutshell, kind of how I got into the Kentucky Sustainable Living Group. We've been down there. We've butchered pigs. We've done plant guild class. I've been able to take my son down there for some stuff. And that's the biggest thing for me is he's 16. He's showing some interest. So anything I can get him to do with me at this age, I take full advantage. So.
Well, cool. And Jason, you've been on my podcast before, so people may know your story, but I've probably doubled in size since last time you were on. So why don't you give us like the skinny of who you are and why you started Kentucky Sustainable Living and sort of what its advent has been or what its journey has been.
Well, I'm Jason with Kentucky Sustainable Living. Me and a few other guys started the group. It's been almost close to 3 years ago, somewhere around there. We were spread out across the state, and we were like, we need to start kind of a mutual assistance group, kind of a community of like-minded individuals. And we're like, where do we start? So there was 4 or 5 of us. We started kind of doing word of mouth with people. And it's like, yeah, you want to join us? We talk, we do stuff like that. And it kind of just started spreading pretty quick. And before long, we looked at it and we started a Facebook page just to get the word out because it's just advertising for the group. And then I look up and there's over 1,000 people in this group. And it's like-minded individuals that we can count on. We've got a smaller group of people that we know a little bit better. We invite those people to our workshops and training events, stuff like that. We do everything from, like Jake was saying, pig butchering, cow butchering. We'll do plant guild classes. We've done a little bit of tactical stuff with some of our members and just stuff like that. We've got a diverse group of people in the whole group. We've got everybody from people like me. I'm a contractor. Then we've got, farmers. We've got nurse practitioners. We've got people, just working on factories. Just every aspect of that, and we can all come together and learn from each other. like when we're doing a pig butchering class, I'll put it out. It's like, hey, we're butchering a pig on Saturday. Whoever wants to come, just let me know and we'll teach you how to butcher a pig.
That's awesome. And I know, like, you didn't start homesteading, did you? As I recall, you didn't start homesteading to homestead. You just ended up out in the country, started with a crack animal that got you into other animals and ended up becoming a homesteader, right?
Yeah, I started. It was
the gateway drug animal was what?
Oh, with chickens, everybody starts out. The drug animal's chickens. You start out with chickens, and then 3 months later, you've got a freaking dairy operation and goats and everything else. And it's like, how in the hell did I get here? So, but we've got a small acreage here. I've lived in the same 10-mile radius my whole life, and I had a piece of ground, and I was like, I want to do something. I've always wanted to do it. It was the time I was like, I've got the land to do it. We got some chickens. Next thing we know, my buddy called me and he's like, hey, I've got a couple piglets. Do you want a couple piglets? And my wife was like, no, we don't want any piglets. So the next day I was building fence for these piglets. And she came in, she goes, what are you doing? I was like, nothing. And she was like, we're getting piglets, aren't we? And I was like, yeah. And we went and picked these things up, and it was like the redneck Olympics, us trying to catch these piglets. So the piglets, we fed those out, processed them, and then the next thing we know, we had sheep. And we've gone from sheep. We've got sheep now and one cow to keep on the property. And, of course, we've still got chickens, and we've got a few pigs.
Sounds like a menagerie.
It is that, and we've got a micro miniature donkey that is useless as all get out.
But probably really cute.
I guess if you like that kind of stuff.
That's its use. It's cute. That's pretty much what my goat is at this point. She was my weed eater for a long time, and she still eats weeds. But basically 6 years in, the reason she hasn't been executed for meat is because I like her.
Yeah.
But, times get hard. I might have to reassess that decision.
We've had 2 goats on the property, and both of them been sold when nobody was home, so they didn't know that they left, and I swore I would never have another goat.
Why, Jason?
Every day it was like your head stuck in a fence or you're doing something stupid, and I'm like, forget it, I'm done with these goats.
Yeah, we have what I refer to as goat knocks now, the place where they can't get out, but we've also trained them to electric, which sometimes keeps them in, sometimes, once in a while.
The best thing to keep a goat in is a 10-foot concrete wall. And they'll figure out a way to get through it.
Yeah, no, they'll just jump over it.
Yeah, and I'm like, but yeah, no more goats on the property ever again, I don't think.
I think the thing about goats is you have to understand their mischievous nature and just understand that is what you are getting into with a goat.
Oh,
They will they're very curious. They will get into things. They will get out of things. They will teach you more about fencing than you ever thought you could learn about fencing. And then you will decide to run sheep later. Yeah. Unless you just love goats. Like I know people who just love goats and that is it. But I'm with you. Like I have decided not to expand the goat herd. There are 2 goats here. I'm letting one of them age out. I actually might process the other one because she's so skittish. I'm afraid she's going to get hurt. And then I'm not going to be able to get near her because she's so skittish. And then we have an actual safety issue on the homestead. So,
We've got a little ram lamb that we had to bottle feed, and he got out yesterday. And I was working in the shop, and he just kind of comes wandering in the shop. It's like, hey, dude, what's going on? And I'm like, he just hung out in the shop and went out when he wanted something to eat. Went out in the yard and got something to eat, and then just came back. And I was like, I'll put you up later. You're not hurting anything.
Yeah. Grumpy Acres says field fence is not your friend if you have goats. No. I use the woven wire, and it's like the 3-inch stuff that's 2 inches wide.
Yeah.
And their horns don't get caught in that.
Yep.
And if you stretch it right, they also can't climb it. And then you have electrical at the top, so they get nailed on the nose if they try to go over. That's the only thing we've had that works. But it was years of trying for that. So how has your mind, I'm going to ask this one to Jake. I don't know how you got into farming and homesteading, but how has your mindset changed since you sort of got into that lifestyle? Because I'm assuming you weren't always in that lifestyle.
Yeah, it's kind of, I I've kind of always been in it. I just didn't really know it. I've never been a social media person. I hadn't had a Facebook account or even really been on anything until like 2 years ago. So I grew up. We had livestock, but we showed livestock. So we had dairy goats because we showed them. We had all kinds of livestock, but we never ate any of it. Like, I mean, so I've been around livestock and I knew about it, but my grandpa and my great grandpa, now I would say they were preppers before I really knew what prepping was. I mean, before, like, I thought of prepping as doomsday preppers, like on TV. That's the only thing I really knew about it. So I think the big thing for us now is we've kind of always done it. I've just learned so much more efficient ways to do different things. Our farm in southern Indiana, it's 150 acres, and we have not moved onto it yet. So we're in the process of building it up, but we've started with, I'm now doing a food forest after learning about food forest. Before I just had fruit trees planted in a row, where now I'm back filling all that in with wood chips and then planting a food forest. And I'm putting fence up right now, sheep and goat fence. I know exactly what you're talking about. The problem is sheep and goat fence is outrageous. So I'm doing a small part with sheep and goat and then field fence on the rest. But the big thing for me is I've just learned so much. I mean, you go to these events and I mean, you can literally pick something up from everybody. And it's stuff that I was working on, but I've just learned better ways to do it. I have a spring that's up on top of a hill that feeds my cabin. And like I had that developed, but now I'm taking the overflow from that spring, running it down to another holding tank, where then I'm going to use that holding tank for a processing area behind our barn and a lean-to, in just different ways, thinking about, I hauled water for the first year we had the place, and most of the people in my area haul water. Oh my God, that is not fun.
No.
And I literally had the spring and knew about it, but I was scared. Like I couldn't figure out how to develop it. I knew nobody so I lived in the country, but nobody, like, I wouldn't even consider where we were at true country. I mean, it was really just 5 and 10 acre lots that city people lived in that didn't want to live in the, Indianapolis. So, I mean, now where we're at, I mean, it's rural and, we love it. Super peaceful, but just learning, because most of the people there, I've went and met my neighbors, like something I wouldn't have ever done in my life. And one of my neighbors, after I got my spring developed, he's talking to me about it. He's like, well, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? I go, yeah, I did all that. He goes, well, then you did it right. I go, and then I had somebody say, well, you should have filmed a YouTube video. And I said, well, I don't really know how to edit. And there wouldn't have been much left after you took the cursing out of it. So, like I was laying in the water, like trying to pack mud and concrete and rock. And like, I mean, it was, but I mean, I think just learning, I have a lot more confidence to do different stuff like that, than I ever would have before. And now I have people that I can bounce ideas off of for just so many different things.
One of the things I love about this lifestyle, but it's also frustrating about it, is you find yourself in situations you never thought you'd be in, like laying in the mud and water, trying to make a dam for your spring. Or like one time I walked into my pump house and an ant's nest had made a nest in the doorway. So I opened the door and like all of the baby ants and the larvae fell into this hair that is very long. And I had been homesteading for about 2 years, and I didn't even first year I would have screamed and been really upset. And I was like, curse word, turned around, and I'm like, trying to get it out of my hair. And I'm like, well, that's life. Sometimes you end up with an entire nest of ants in your hair and it sucks,
Or we moved our animals into another paddock, and I bring them up to the barn every night. Our Hereford cow, Ginger, she will not come to the barn. I have to go down in the pasture with a grass string and tie it around her neck and walk her. I can literally hold it with 2 fingers. There's no pressure on it. But she wants me to walk her at night back to the barn. And I'm like, you're such a spoiled brat. And I tell my mom this story, and she's like, you need to film some of this stuff. This would be great. I was like, at 9 o'clock at night, I'm not filming this. I was like, I'm mad and just ready to go inside.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other big thing is when I mentioned my son, I think that's been the biggest driver for me, because like when I took him to SRF, like I watched his confidence level of interacting with adults and, going from a 16-year-old kid to, a 16-year-old man. Like I felt like I watched him do that over the last 3 or 4 months of that, then going to Jason's, him talking to Chuck about medical. Like I just felt like I'm watching him gain so much confidence that I don't know like any other way that I could have taught him that stuff.
Hey, Grant did. I saw it just at the weekend of SRF. Friday, when y'all got down there, he was nervous in his shell, didn't want to talk to anybody. And by Sunday, he was throwing stuff right back at you. We were messing with him, and I mean, he would just spit it right back at you. And
I mean,
I'm like, he's going to work.
He was talking to Eric from Porterhouse, and he's like, he had never really showed that he's interested in tactical stuff. He likes guns, but he had never showed interest in anything else. And he was talking to Eric at Porterhouse and Indiana Mike actually, and he was talking but he had Grant come in, and later Grant's like, I'm gonna have to watch some videos to learn more so I can talk to them about more stuff when I come back. And yeah, he definitely loves mashed potatoes.
Yes.
Don't we all? I'm not allowed to eat them at this time in my life, but I'll be able to have them after late July again. But yeah, I think one of the cool things about the people who come to these events, like the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival, like Self-Reliance Festival, is they do interact with children like they're adults. And that doesn't necessarily mean bawdy jokes, but they talk to them like they're real people, because if you think about it, children are being like, what are we doing with children? We're raising adults is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And if they're scared to talk to other adults, then they don't get pushed in the critical thinking arena and other ways or maturity. And, I've watched society treat our children like they're helpless well beyond the years where children are helpless.
Yes.
It's amazing to me what children can do when you just get out of their way.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a cool story to hear, Jake. So you were kind of talking about the lone wolf mentality you had living out in the country. You thought you were the only person like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's our nature to be closed off. At least it's definitely my nature to be closed off. I had never even really met my neighbors where I've lived in the past. I remember the first time I went to an event, my wife was like shocked that we were going to go because she knows that's not who I am. We actually went and I didn't talk to a single person, and I tried to leave, and we drove an hour and I was there for like 5 minutes. I'm like, yep, this isn't for me. I didn't think I would like this. And we were like trying to get out without offending anybody and anybody seeing us. And somebody like cornered us and started talking to us. And then we talked for like 2 hours. And then just you keep meeting people. And I think like when you go to this event, the chances are you're going to have stuff in common with the people there. I mean, that's why they're there. So I think I've definitely came out of my shell. And I think Jason will talk to anybody. And I think the more I'm around people like that, it's really helped me. And I've developed so many friendships. Like Eric Porterhouse again, like he called me the other day, like they started selling on eBay, which is a side hustle that I've done for 20 years. And he's like, hey, we sold our first thing. Walk me through shipping it. And, here I am talking to Eric about, eBay in California, just a random person that I've met at SRF who is just a good person. And that's you meet at these things. I mean, you're going to meet good people. And the first time I went down to Jason's, I'm a grown man. I was kind of nervous. I'm like, I don't do stuff like this, but you get down there, and that's when I met Shelly. And then, we went back for the medical, and then I got to meet, Chuck and Chase and other people from the Kentucky group. And I think if we really want to build a community, if we really want to support each other, I think you do that by meeting like-minded people and then supporting them. I mean, that's how you make this work.
And you're only with the community, you're only going to get out what you put in. If you just show up at an event and you stand there like Jake was saying, he wanted to show up there, oh, it's not for me. If you show up there and lean up against the fence all day and don't talk to anybody, you might as well just stay at home because you're not going to get anything. You've got to put in to get out. So talk to the people. Yeah, it might be a little scary, but go talk to that person and be like, hey, I'm Joe Blow and I live in so-and-so. What? Talk to me.
And I mean, the speakers are great, but like, you don't have to find the speakers. You don't have to find the person speaking. The person sitting next to you is probably, the same thing you are. So talk. I mean, just talk. It's the event was great. It was the first one I went to. It was this, last year, and I mean, it's really changed my view on a lot of things.
Yeah, so I think when I saw that you guys were doing the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival, I thought a couple things. One, man, those people are going to be busier than they ever thought they'd be for about the next 6 months. And I looked at your date, and it conflicts with Jack Spirko's event in Dallas that I speak at every year. And I'm like, well, dang it, I can't go, but I sure will sponsor that because I know what they're up against going into
we
that.
Appreciate that a bunch.
Sure. And tell me just about how you came to the decision to do the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival and what it's been like. Like, you made the decision and then you started, and did you get in there and go, yeah, this is about as busy as I thought it would be? Or were you like, holy cow, what have I gotten myself into? Like, what has that been like?
Well, all three of us were sitting there, and the seed had been planted with Shelly and I several months back. Somebody told us that we respect her, like, you need to do a Kentucky festival. And we kind of wrote it off. We're like, haha, yeah, right. We ain't got time to do that. So after SRF, all three of us have been sitting there and we're like, what if we do it? And so they were like, okay, let's try it. When I do something like this, I'm balls to the wall. We're doing this. We're doing it 100%. We're not going to screw around. And I'm going to ask all these people if they want to come do it. And I told Shelly and Jake, I'm like, the worst they can say is no. So, I could ask Trump if he wanted to come and be like, hey, you want to come speak at this? The worst he can do is laugh at me and say no, and I'm going to go on about my day and whatever. But that we just sat in there and decided to do it. And the support of people that we found in our community and stuff, everybody's excited about it. It's amazing. Some of the people we've talked to are like, hey, will you come speak at this? And they're like, yeah, sure, I would love to. So, but it's a tremendous amount of work. That's for sure.
The answer is always no if you don't ask.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me to get past early on. And now I just ask. Like, it's been for me a really good journey because I don't love cold calling sales sorts of things. And basically what you're doing for speakers and for sponsors and for all of that is saying, hi, that was a really cool event. You should come to. Do you want to spend money to come here? Right. And really that perspective of the answer is always no if you don't ask. How long does it take me to ask? And if the answer is no, the answer is no. If the answer is maybe or tell me more, that's actually an opening, right? And if the answer is yes, then we can do one more cool thing because we have a little bit more support. So I think it's really important for those of us involved in arranging festivals like the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival and Self-Reliance Festival and Back to the Land Festival and all of these festivals that are happening, the Midwest Preparedness Project Festival, is that we share what we learn as we're coordinating the events so that everybody's event can be better, and then do our best to get to the ones we can. Like, it's a little inconvenient, but the weekend before SRF, I'm speaking in at the Midwest Preparedness Festival because I can't. And I was like, do I want to do that? Well, I mean, I really wish it was 2 weeks earlier rather than 1 week earlier, but I can like bip in and out. Unfortunately, I don't get to stay there for the whole festival because I need to make sure ours is happening too. But I think that cross-pollination helps attract people come like Jake, who may not have been the kind of person to go to an event. And then he discovers, I have just found my tribe. That's our tagline this year, right? Is find your tribe. I've found people who think like I do, who understand that taking care of ourselves is important so we can take care of our community, who want to be strong people, want to grow strong children, want to be healthy people, and take control and ownership for their futures. And the more people like that we get in, the better off we are. So that, I mean, those are things I've sort of been thinking about in the last few weeks as we get into what for all of us is going to be like 150% in on festival promotion, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
Well,
with
to add to that, Nicole, I thought a unique thing. So I talked to a lady from the Bowling Green paper. Honestly, she sounded like a kid when I talked to her, and I was like, "Is she a summer intern?" But so she didn't even know what homesteading was. She didn't know what anything was. So the first call, she's like, she looked at the website, she saw the event dates and the people that were already on there, and I talked to her, and she's like, "Well, what is homesteading?" And I was like, I said, "That's an answer, that's a different answer to every person that does it." Well, by the end of the conversation, here's somebody who's never been around anything but like city life, but she has a yard. At the end of the second or third time I talked to her, she's like, I could do this now. I can grow food in my yard. And I was like, yes, that's kind of the point. Like you might have a big farm and you might have, livestock and rotational graze and do that, or you might live in town and have something in your yard, but you can still grow food. You can still, do stuff. And I think talking to somebody like that who was just would have never had any knowledge of the festival or anything we talk about, and after talking to her 3 times, she's talking about growing food in her yard. I just found that, pretty encouraging, to be honest. I mean, I've told everybody about these events now that I know, and I mean, I'm in sales. I sell electrical, like big electrical distribution parts. And I mean, most of my customers don't even know I have a farm in Southern Indiana because I never talked about anything. And, one person's like, "So are you building like a compound?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess if that's what if that's what you see on TV and you can, equivalent, yeah, I'm building a compound." And he's just looking at me like I'm crazy. And he's like, "Well, what could go wrong?" And I was like, I mean, have you been
oh, let
alive
me tell you,
for 10 years? Like, I mean, what could go wrong? I mean, I'm not saying the world's going to end, but obviously, if these last few years has taught us anything, stuff can go wrong anytime.
yeah, my biggest regret on my homestead is that it's taken me 15 years to get the perimeter fence done. I should have done that first. Now, I had a lot of other work to do, but we've had some incidents here that had never happened before because people are just basically scared to come down my road. Jason's been here. He may know why.
it's a small,
Huh?
it's a small little road.
It's a small little road, and you're like, everybody's peeking out their window at me as I drive.
And the time I came was the time they were doing road maintenance on it and had like half the road blocked. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the hell? The one time I come down here, it's like you can't even freaking get by. It's like, this is great.
Yeah, I love it. Much easier to deal with keeping people out if we ever have to do that because it's not a big road. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah,
But
so that's how the road we live on. My wife had always been in the city, and one of the first times we were down there, she's like yelling because she thought somebody was in her driveway. They had actually turned on the gravel road like over a mile away, but that's how quiet it is. Like you can hear them turn on the gravel from a mile away.
Yep. It's funny. I live in a holler, which is why we call our homestead the Holler Homestead. And I can actually hear what people are saying, normal voice, 1/10 of a mile away because it bounces.
Yep. It's
Sometimes.
crazy.
If the wind is right, I'm like, there are no secrets in the holler. Like, if you need to have secrets, you don't need to be here. Well, now I've taken the tactical response fighting pistol class, and I, for the first time, wore the kind of ear protection where you can hear people talking,
Yep.
I always just had my lawn mowing hearing protection on before. And I'm like, not only that, I can't whisper about anybody behind their backs in a crowd just in case somebody's wearing some of these, because you can totally hear somebody's like across the range what they're saying quietly to somebody. And you can hear the sound of their feet hitting the grass.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's so peaceful.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a funny thing. I think, what would your tips be for people who come to events like these, like to get the most out of it, especially if they're more on the shy or introverted side? This might not be Jason's strong suit, but we'll let him start.
I think the key is just to go, have an open mind, and talk to people. It's gonna feel awkward because I was that person. I mean, it's definitely gonna feel awkward, but if you don't get over that, you're never gonna, build friendships, and it's the only. It's sounds simple, but yeah, just talk to people. I mean, go have an open mind and talk to people.
Jason, what would you add to that?
Don't be scared. I remember the first time I met any of y'all was when I came down for the Swales class. So I roll up there at John's place. I don't know anybody. I roll up and I'm like, where's the freaking door? I'm like, and I walk in there. Everybody was there a little bit before. And I'm like, all these people are talking. I felt like a duck out of water. I was like, I know none of these people. But I got in, started talking to people. And then the second time you were there, I knew where the door's at, come in, say hi to everybody, knew a bunch of the people that were already there. It's get in there, don't be scared. No, if you walk in a place, nobody is really looking at you. Nobody's gonna be like, "Who's this goober that walked in here?" You know, they're all making fun of everybody. It's walk in there, talk to people, be confident about yourself, because I guarantee a bunch of those people that are there are just as nervous about being there as you are. So go up there, strike a conversation, make sure you talk to people, because like I said,
be yourself. I think be yourself. Don't try to be somebody different. Don't try to be what you think, it's going to just be yourself. That's how you build.
Yeah. I think just talk to the people.
Yeah. If you are yourself and you don't know something when somebody asks you a question or whatever, just admit you don't know. And I think as an introvert, I'm an introvert. Maybe you don't know that, but I am an introvert. I have questions I can ask people that I've just what do you do? Why did you come here? Which speaker captured your interest the most? And they'll say something and then ask them more questions about them. You get them talking, then the pressure's off you to talk. Or they'll ask you questions, and then that sort of directs the conversation if you're just sort of not quite sure how to talk to people. But another really great introvert trick is volunteer. If you're working the parking lot or working registration or working whatever at an event like this, I'm assuming you guys have volunteer needs at your event too. Yeah. You get to know the event coordinators, and so they'll usually introduce you to people, and people are coming to you who need help. And so it's like you have something to do, so you're not sitting there going, who do I talk to? You have that built in. So that's a really, being the lady who serves the coffee has always been a really good icebreaker for me. It's oh, here's coffee. People come up and they talk to you about coffee, right?
Oh yeah. So, I tell you honestly, at the last SRF, I watched 2 of the presenters is all I watched, and I spent the rest of my time talking to people is all I did. I wanted to see some of the presenters, but it was the people that were there and attending is the people that I spent all the time with.
Why I think it's really important for those of us who are presenters to come to these things and talk is we help the people who arrange these events get people in. They want to come see us talk, right? Like Joel Salatin, people want to come see him talk. And Joel Salatin's the kind of speaker who will sit around and hang out, and you can actually walk up to him and talk to him. He understands when I'm there, that's why I'm there. But the real reason to go to the event has nothing to do with the speakers. It has everything to do with everybody else who comes there. And so when I hear people like Jason say he only went to 2 sessions and instead what he did was network the crap out of himself, that was a way better outcome for you personally, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think people don't realize about events. It literally matters not who's speaking. There are people who love it and they see the presentations. It doesn't matter what we're teaching people there. If we're teaching them about plant guilds, or we're teaching them how to do blacksmithing, or we're teaching them how to make cheese, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It matters that we come out and we have fellowship with each other.
Yeah, and like Bruce DeVries, I didn't know that
Biochar Bruce.
Yeah, I didn't know that Bruce was less than an hour away from me. So Bruce came up for our last Plant Guild class, and Shelly asked him, she was like, Bruce, can you talk just a minute about some biochar? So we all came back to the shop. Bruce gave a 30 to 45-minute talk on biochar, and he's like, I hope I kind of covered it for you a little bit. And I was like, dude, it was 45 minutes or something. And I was like, it was awesome. It's just in the spur of the moment. He was just talking off the sleeve about stuff.
Yeah. And there are people like that in the audience the whole time who just know a lot about something. Like Chris Watkins is right here. I noticed he's like the tree guy, right?
Yeah.
He knows about chainsaws. He has heavy equipment. He's an arborist. And like that's somebody you want to talk to. They know things we don't know, even if we know a lot. And I think it's just cool how much knowledge there is in our community. And you know, we always do this thing where you say, does anybody think they don't have a skill? And they raise their hand and you ask them what they do for work.
Yeah.
And they say, well, you know, I'm a caterer or something. And you're like, anybody need a caterer for their event? And 7 hands go up, right? There's always something that people don't realize is their skill. Or I'm really good at researching. I could use a research assistant from time to time on things, especially now that the internet, like Google broke and their search doesn't really work anymore when you're looking for real information. Like I need people who can dig because it takes a lot of time to do that now.
Oh yeah, and I've had the same conversation with people that want to join up with us. You know, a lady's like, "Well, I'm 65 and I'm retired. I don't really have any skills, you know." And you dig a little bit, and it's like everybody has something to offer to the group. Because if you didn't have something to offer to the group or to the world, God would not let you be here. He'd call you on back. So, my opinion is, if you're still alive, you've got something to bring to it. Everybody in our group can bring something. You just got to look and find out what that is.
Yep.
You might have to put a little effort in. I mean, it's not, I think somebody said something earlier. It's not just going to come to you. You might have to put a little effort in and put some work in.
I have a friend who was in that situation where he said, I don't have any skills. I don't know how to grow plants. I can't do livestock. I don't particularly like being outside at all. And, but I'm concerned about the state of the world and I'm in this community and I'm like, I'm the guy that they're going to shoot first because he's just sucking off of the community wellness, which, you know, I'm sure he had more to offer than that. And they're not really going to shoot him. Google. But anyway, he was a procurement manager at Dollar General. So what he knew how to do was get large volumes of stuff for cheap. He knew how to negotiate contracts. And he launched his business, Discount Mylar Bags, when he realized there was no affordable option for quality Mylar bags in his network. And he's like, well, I can buy containers of these things and then pass on the savings because everybody else dealing them is marking them up way more. And he ended up, he's no longer at Dollar General. He's made enough money with that he can retire, but he doesn't because he's still running Discount Mylar Bags and doing other stuff. And they've become a cornerstone of their community where they have, like, after church, there's a pause and then people come over and they do LARPing, which I just learned what that was, in their yard. And they have these big lights so it can go after dark and they potluck food and all of that. And it's become a place where kids can go that is not drugs or crime.
Yeah.
And have fun. Oh
yeah. And discount Mylar Bags, I've bought from them for the last 12 to 14 years. And
yeah.
Super stand-up company. And I found them through the Latter-day Saints, the Mormon camp in Hendersonville.
Oh, interesting.
That's where I found them. And I'm like, man, this dude is in Tennessee. He's local, as local as you're going to get for Mylar Bags. I'm like, I'm going to give him my money and never once had a problem with him. And he's the only place that I will buy Mylar Bags from.
Same. But also because when I started Hollow Roast and I was like, I didn't pay myself. So we're 6 years in. I didn't pay myself for the first 4 doing Hollow Roast. So I don't even know how I got by those years. But I'm glad because I invested everything back into the company. And he was like, how much are you paying for your coffee bags, Nicole? And I told him. And it's like, I think I can do better than that. And he ordered a pallet or something. I don't even know how many coffee bags to my specifications. And then he passed on the savings to me and he makes some money on them, but he passed on the savings to me. And that small little thing brought the cost down enough to get me more profit, A, and B, it taught me something about sourcing materials that I hadn't really put effort into. So like, you don't want to spend 7 weeks cutting a penny off your shipping label, right? But if you can figure out how to cut dollars off of shipping, which was the next thing I put my mind to, times 100 packages every couple of weeks, that's hundreds of dollars and then thousands of dollars. And like since that time, he's been my exclusive bag provider. I just found out though, there's only 6 boxes of my bags left. So now I gotta figure that out because I went through about half a box this week. So and I don't want to go back up to the expensive bags from, plastic bags or whatever, where I don't even remember where I was getting. My first bags came from Uline. Like that's the most expensive place where you can buy stuff like that. Doubt. But they get it to you fast. Boy, do they get it to you fast.
All right.
So, yeah.
Chris, I might come down to the chainsaw thing that John's having. If we're done with baseball tournament, I'll probably come down and attend that thing.
You should totally attend that thing if you can.
If we're done with baseball tournament, I'm free on that Saturday. So
sweet. Does that have to do with winning or losing?
Yes.
So now there's no way to. So you're like, I can't hope that we're done.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, we're third seed in the tournament, so we've got an awesome team.
Yeah.
So
cool.
And Shelly, I saw Shelly was in here.
Yeah, Shelly's here. I don't know why she's not on here. Come on, man. We could have had a 4-way conversation.
She's got like a real full-time job.
Oh, she has a real job. Okay, so we have to talk to Shelly at night.
Yeah. Yeah, Shelly talks at night. Shelly's got like a real job and makes money and stuff, and I just screw around, and Jake is a salesman and drives around all the time.
Yeah, I do this for a living. And I was in the roasting shack this morning. So I used to have a roasting assistant who's gone now, so I do everything again. And when I go out of town, it's like I better roast in advance so those orders that are coming in over the weekend, we can like ship them out on Monday. That's what today was all about. So I'm listening to y'all while working. That's the perfect kind of job to have. I can't listen to 2 things. I can't like listen and do something unless it's like literally planting seeds in the garden or something that otherwise it's like what you say ends up in my show notes.
I listen to stuff all day long, but a lot of the stuff is just like today I'm sanding all day long. So it's like you need something to keep your mind occupied.
Yeah. So. Those of you who are just hearing about the chainsaw class, we highlighted it on yesterday's show, but it's at originalsoegear.com. I think soetactical.com forwards to there. I just learned that this week. But it's like front and center. It's a day-long class. They're feeding you lunch. You can camp the night before. And I don't know what all Chris is going to go over, but I know that I have seen him teach chainsaw before, and he is an awesome teacher and knows his stuff. So I imagine some trees will be cut down, hopefully on the dam side of that pond. We don't know, though. So anyway, well, okay, let's get around to Kentucky Sustainable Living's festival. Like, tell us what you've got planned so far.
Jake, you wanna do some, and I'll do a little bit.
Yeah, kick it off.
We've got one of the big things is we've got a pig and a chicken processing that we'll be doing on site. So we're going to have that pig. It's one of the pigs I'm raising now. We're going to have it fully processed at the festival, going from live and breathing to pork chops that afternoon. Darren Strong is heading that up with Hacks from the Homestead, and Billy with Permapastures is going to be second fiddle. He was like, yeah, I'll play second fiddle to Darren. So they're going to be there doing the pig processing. Then we're going to do chicken processing on Sunday. We've got a ton of great speakers. Jake, can you go over the speakers that we've got?
Yep. So Chuck Peebles will be there, who's been on here today, but he'll be talking. He'll have a speaking, and then he's also teaching 2 classes. All that information is on the website. So, and then Eric Johnson will be there. He's doing a class and will also be speaking. Greg Braun, who is actually very local to Bowling Green. So his was the first farm I visited like 4 years ago before we actually bought our farm. He has a regenerative agriculture farm. He actually teaches with Greg Judy. I went and spent a full day at his farm just going around with just soaking up knowledge from him. Super knowledgeable. Jake Drum will be speaking about emergency medicine. Emily Rock will be there. She has a dairy cow. She'll actually have the cow on site and will be going over just how she raises it, how to milk it, information about it. Bruce will be there. He was going to talk biochar, I'm assuming, Jason.
Yeah.
And it's October 28th and 29th in Bowling Green. It's at WKU Ag Expo Center. There'll be plenty of parking. It's all indoors. We have a lot of vendors that are signing up. We're still looking for vendors. If you have a handmade product or a homesteading related product, reach out. You can contact me, Jason or Shelly. And then the big thing is I had to work last night. So Jason says I never work, but I had to go to a dinner. But so they kicked off last night. You can check out the live stream on the charity dinner we'll be having that Saturday night. I've watched the first half of it so far. I mean, talk about Vets for Child Rescue. I mean, listen to that live stream and what they're doing and what's going on. I mean, it's the wild charity. So
yeah, the Vets for Child Rescue dinner is going to be a charity dinner for them. It's going to be Saturday night of there. All of our special guests and speakers and stuff like that will be at the dinner where you can have time to talk to them, eat dinner with them. And then hopefully Forrest that we had on the live last night. Yeah, and Andy's little homestead will be there too. He's big on Facebook. So, and pretty stinking hilarious too, if you've ever watched any of his videos. But yeah, the Vets for Child Rescue, it's going to be a charity dinner for them that we'll have Saturday night. We're hoping to raise enough money to do an actual operation in Kentucky and catch a bunch of pedophiles and save some kids in Kentucky is what we're planning. So,
awesome.
And then also the Friday before the event, we're going to have Eric Porterhouse is going to be doing a guild planting class on planting fruit trees and all the associated guilds with it. And then Chuck Peoples is doing a homestead medicine class on Friday also. Those are on the websites. You can sign up and get registered for those.
And that's KentuckySustainableLiving.com for those who are getting audio only. KentuckySustainableLiving.com if you want to check out that event. We'll have it in our event calendar too at NicoleSauce.com and LivingFreeInTennessee.com just as part of a network event. So folks know that it's there as well.
And they're not listed yet, but Grumpy Acres will be there with the freeze-dried food and then also doing a food
preservation.
Yeah,
they do a great job of that.
Grumpy's a little late. He's a little slow on getting their bio and stuff in. That's what we're waiting for with him. So if he's on here, get it in. Or we're going to
we're still adding to it. I think
Grumpy does not like to work at the computer because he's a homesteader getting stuff done. That's the challenge.
And also, Aaron T. Scott will be there speaking. So if you hadn't checked her out, it's the real Aaron T. Scott on YouTube.
Awesome.
So, phenomenal lady that has done all kinds of great stuff.
EMP Shield will be there. Tag will be there. Spags will be there. I mean, kind of as we were talking about it before, a lot of the groups the same, you're going to hear those same people support a lot of events. So, I mean, if you're in the market, no matter what you're looking for, I mean, try to support these people that support these events. That's what makes it happen. So whether it's Hollow Roast Coffee, EMP Shield, those are the people that make this possible. So.
Because we've got a greenhouse, a smaller mom and pop greenhouse company coming in from Michigan, and they're going to have a greenhouse set up in the arena. Vendors like that, stuff that it's like, I want to see the greenhouse before. You can actually see their greenhouse. They'll have a full-size greenhouse set up there where you can look at it and see all the different pieces and parts and how it's constructed.
Sweet. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being on. Folks, get your tickets if you're interested in going to the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival. It's KentuckySustainableLiving.com on the website. Thanks for being on today.
All right.
Thank you very much.